Yesterday, as the worst of the pandemic raged, childhood hunger skyrocketed. Even now, 1 in 6 kids may be living with hunger. Today, we start rebuilding, and tomorrow, we'll give them everything they need to grow up happy and strong. For their tomorrow, we're reimagining a world where every kid has the food they need to thrive. Visit nokidhungry.org/rebuild to find out what you can do for kids in your community.
As a community, we build empathy, curiosity, joy, and connection when we share stories with you. Welcome to Storytellers Project, part of the USA Today network.
Hello, everyone. I'm LeBron Hill, opinion and engagement reporter with the Tennessean here in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm so excited to be the host MC of tonight's Storytellers Project show, and we so appreciate you sharing your evening with us. Tonight, we're joining Humana, No Kid Hungry, and 5 Americans from across the nation to create community. Since 2016, the Storytellers Project has brought more than 100 shows each year to communities across the country. But we've canceled our in-person season as a part of the USA Today Network's response to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. So, we've handpicked incredible storytellers and inspiring people to bring you a show about the meaning of home and all the rebuilding and reimagining that it requires. So let's go ahead and say hi to our storytellers. First up, so we have our live storytellers, Parra. How you doing? And then we and then we also have Corey Draper. Hey there. And then we also have some pre-recorded storytellers, which are Peggy Lawrence, Juan Carlos Luna Vargas, and George Baker. And also, we have a special Q&A with Pamela Taylor, a Chief Communications and Marketing Officer for No Kid Hungry. She'll be sharing how all of us can help in the fight against child hunger. So, on that, tonight's show will benefit No Kid Hungry. And you can donate right now by going to nokidhungry.org/USA Today. And here's a little bit about why you should. 1 in 6 kids in America could face hunger because of the coronavirus. In the wake of the pandemic, millions of children are still living with hunger. Rebuilding starts with feeding every child in every community. With generous support from Humana, No Kid Hungry is helping schools and communities get the food, support, and equipment they need to feed children. Humana is proud to support No Kid Hungry in helping to connect kids to healthy meals, and they're making your donation go even further by matching all donations through this page up to $25,000. Child hunger is a very real problem in America. But unlike a lot of things, there are real, workable solutions, and No Kid Hungry and their partners are experts at making them work. This crisis has shown that unemployment and hunger can touch any family, anywhere, at any time. It's on all of us to ensure kids get the food they need, regardless of their circumstance. No Kid Hungry is singularly focused on not just fighting childhood hunger, but ending it for good. Through emergency grants, hands-on guidance, and rallying the right people, they're helping put meals on the table for every hungry child. And again, you can be a part of the solution by visiting nokidhungry.org/USA Today. So now let me prepare you for what tonight isn't going to be. It's not going to be a TED Talk. It's not going to be a Toastmasters, a how-to talk, an inspirational speech, an educational lecture, or even a great PowerPoint slideshow. We won't sell you anything except maybe a great subscription from one of the great local papers in your community. Well, and of course, we're asking for you to donate to No Kid Hungry. But at the core of this is storytelling. And storytelling is based on visiting. You open your heart and your mind, and you pay attention to a person you care about and you want to feel closer to. So we invite you to do that tonight. And I will remind you that some of these stories will be polished and professional. Some of these will be casual and conversational. We ask you to receive all of them because that's how community change happens. We believe creating empathy and understanding is vital, and especially in times of uncertainty. And with that, I am super excited to welcome our first storyteller, Anna Parra. Please take it away.
When I was 10 years old, my parents sat us down and told us that we were leaving our home in Miami, Florida, for a new town called Greenville, South Carolina. We had lived in Miami for about 3 years and moved there from New York City. And when they told us about Greenville, I had no idea what to expect. I had never heard of Greenville. I had never even heard of South Carolina. So my 10-year-old brain, I had to create a destination, somewhere that I could look forward to. A couple of days after they broke the news, I was watching Nickelodeon, as 10-year-olds do, and I saw an all-star basketball game. And that all-star basketball game, it was for kids with perfect attendance. And besides really wanting to attend that game, I heard the announcer come on. And he said, "We're in Charlotte, North Carolina." And I thought, there we go. That's it. That's my new destination. I'm headed to an all-star basketball game. The summer before 5th grade, my mother, she packed up the car. It was a blue Oldsmobile station wagon, and off we went to Greenville, South Carolina. During that 12-hour ride, I remember thinking, as I looked out the window, what's going to replace these palm trees and beaches that I've grown accustomed to? What's going to replace the city streets and skyscrapers that I knew before that? That evening, we arrived to the one-bedroom apartment my father shared with a family friend, and my father, my mother, my sister and brother and I, we all slept in that one bedroom that evening. And I remember thinking, this is not like an all-star basketball game. But despite my disappointment, Greenville, South Carolina would become home for a while. The landscapes that replaced those beaches and the palm trees, they were open fields and mountains. And it took me a while to get used to them, to navigate this new town. I had moved from 2 big cities, and all of a sudden we were in a really small one, and it felt like I was a foreigner in my own country. But not necessarily because of the new landscapes, more so because I always got one question from people I met. I always heard, "Where are you from?" "Oh, Miami, New York." Sometimes Miami, I would say, sometimes New York. Eventually, Greenville. "I'm from here. I've lived here for quite a while." But despite giving that answer, they would never be satiated with it. They always would follow up with the next question. No, where are you from? My parents, they had emigrated from Colombia, South America in the 70s to New York City. My father, he came first to get a job and to get things settled. And when it came time for my mom to join, my abuelita, she said, "No way. My daughter, she needs a ring on her finger." And that was not just an engagement ring. She needed the whole wedding ring. So being a devout Catholic and committed member, faithful member of Nuestra Señora del Perpetuo Socorro, she used her connections to orchestrate a wedding with my mother, and without my father, but with my Uncle Martin standing in for him that day. My uncle was tasked with having the marriage blessed by the church and by my abuelita. And once he accomplished this, my mother was off to New York City. I often wonder what that felt like for my parents, Marcos and Nubia, newlyweds in a new city, learning a new culture, a new language, thousands of miles away from their close-knit families. My mother had left her parents, 11 siblings, all of them for this, and the only place she had ever called home. And besides that, they were learning about each other because they were young and just getting to know each other. But despite that, they made a home in New York. They created community with people who shared their culture and their language. Fellow Colombianos, Dominicanos, Puerto Ricanos, people who shared their language. And my mother learned to make some mean arroz con gandules, and for that, I am forever grateful. So then they started a family, because that's what you do when you for the American dream. And first, a boy arrived in 73, then a girl in 77. And then once they felt like they had checked off enough items on the American dream checklist, they decided it was time to move back to Colombia, to their home. But they didn't expect me. A girl arrived in 81, and they decided that as a family of 5, it was better that they stay. And that's how New York City became my first home. My father, he likes to tell the story of how I am the only one of my siblings to have been born in Manhattan. My sister and brother were born in Queens, where we lived, but for some reason, my parents decided to make the trek. And I was born in New York Presbyterian Hospital, down the street from City Hall in the financial district, with a view of the Brooklyn Bridge. I don't remember that view, but I do remember what it was like to be a kid in New York City, because everything felt, even the ordinary felt extraordinary. I remember taking field trips to the Natural Museum of History, grilled cheese sandwiches at the cafe at the Met. I remember walking down the streets when it snowed and there were big mounds of white fluff on either side, dirty white fluff, but nonetheless, and playing in concrete playgrounds where splash pads helped us escape the hot, hot city summers. But my favorite memory was grabbing the F train into the city and grabbing a seat by the window so I could see that moment where 2 train cars would pass each other, and I could see into the other train car, and I could see the other people who were reading their books or just staring into space, and that just felt surreal. New York City was my playground, but my home was 6011 Broadway, a 5-story building that had kids from all over the world. It felt like Sesame Street. How do you top that? Well, apparently with beaches and the Sunshine State. But our time in Miami was so short that honestly, it feels like such a short blip in the movie of my life. But South Carolina, we stayed a while. So I went through puberty here. I graduated high school. And after leaving for college and for a short stint up north, I came back for a job. That job is where I would meet my husband, Ian. Ian, who had a son, Nathaniel, who was 2 years old and who Ian had no plans to move away from. Being his partner meant staying in Greenville, at least for a while. We would buy our first home here and complete our family when our son Enzo was born. I remember when Enzo was born and going to the Department of Health to get his birth certificate. And Greenville, South Carolina was on that line and for place of birth. And thinking, you know what, I don't necessarily feel proud, but I feel official. This hometown, this city that didn't seem to want to claim me, could not get rid of me. And then a little something hit called the pandemic. And like many families around the world, we hunkered down in our ranch-style home, and I felt grateful for the time that we had with each other to 24/7 spend every day with each other, going to school at our home, going to work, eating every meal, playing, laughing, all the things. And I remember what I will treasure most during that time was Nathaniel, now a teenager, sitting at the kitchen counter and just sharing with us things that normally teenagers wouldn't talk about with their parents, but the pandemic did some crazy things. And he would tell us about his love interests and his friends, and eventually that conversation became, where would he go to college? Well, he would choose New York City. He would go to a university down the street, actually across the street from that hospital, New York Presbyterian, that I was born in, and with a view of the Brooklyn Bridge. People often ask me if I am nervous about Nathaniel being in New York City, but I'm not. He's home. The thing you learn very early on as a daughter of immigrants is that home can be multiple places. My parents, they moved from Colombia to New York City, and New York became home, but Colombia remained home as well. So where am I from? I'm from the streets and playgrounds of Woodside, Queens. I'm from trips into the city to visit museums. I am from the Colombian Mountains, where my parents would have moved back to if it had not been for me. I am from my parents' home in Malden, South Carolina. I'm from the home Ian and I have created with our 2 sons. I am from all those places. And right now, I kind of miss my home in New York City because Nathaniel's there. But I also have one here with Ian and Enzo. I carry them both with me.
Wow, thank you, Anna. I really appreciate you, just telling your story. I also just really enjoyed, how you not only found home, but you defined it for yourself. That's such a great story. No. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks, Ron.
Well, I want to take this time to thank Humana. Humana is sponsoring the Storyteller Project shows nationally and now virtually because they believe that sharing stories makes for healthier people and healthier communities. And we need these connections to each other and to health now more than ever. With the COVID-19 vaccines available where you live, consider talking to your healthcare professional about what's right for you. Visit humana.com for more about what they're doing each and every day to connect you to better health in your community. And again, Humana is proud to support No Kid Hungry in helping connect kids to healthy meals, and they're making your donation go even further by matching all donations through this page up to $25,000. And with that, here's our next storyteller, previously recorded, Peggy Lawrence, a school nutrition director in Rockdale County Public Schools in Atlanta.
So want to share with you a little bit about how our school district and our school meal program has responded to the needs of kids in our community and what we've been able to do with the help of all of our partners within our school district, within our community, our families, and certainly with some support from No Kid Hungry. So March the 12th of 2020, I was sitting in a school board meeting here in our school system and got taken aside just before the meeting started and told, listen, we're about to announce that school's closing for the next 2 weeks. And start to get your head around that, Peggy. The meeting, is about to start. And so as the executive director of school nutrition here in our school system of about 16,000 students, started to think, okay, what are we going to do? How are we going to get our head around this? And how are we going to be able to respond to our kids? A lot of our students count on school meals. Kids come to school for lots of reasons other than academics, lots of services and things, and really just to speak to the theme of George's mural as well. They come for connection, relationships, people, teachers, students, just that whole feeling of connection that happens within a school building. But food is a big deal to all of us, and food's a really big deal to our students. And so as I sat through that meeting, began to formulate a plan, by the time that meeting was over, I got out to my car, started, made a couple of phone calls, to 2 of our key cafeteria managers who had run our summer meal program in the past. Both of them immediately agreed to come on board and start working that following week. And really by the end of that evening, we sort of had a plan put together. You can imagine the logistics that go into suddenly taking meals out into the community, from being, in our buildings and having our kids come to us, and suddenly we're going to them. We have done summer feeding for the last, we had done at that point for 6 or 7 prior years. We had some experience, and that's really kind of the model that I based our next phase. But I knew we had to get to our kids. I knew that meal pickups and things like that just were not going to work, for our students, that we had to get to them. And so that Sunday, as communication went out from our district, the calls started coming in. My phone number was the one that was given out to all of our families. And that Sunday afternoon on March the 15th, actually on that Sunday, I went in and returned phone calls to parents for about 2 hours worth. By the time I left my office and drove home, all of 1 mile, about a 4-minute trip, I had 6 more calls that had come in. I pulled into my driveway. I sat there and I thought to myself, okay, Peggy, like, this is bigger than you realized. The need is real. Families are scared. Parents were concerned. How are we going to get food? What are we going to do? What is this going to do to us financially? What's going to happen to my own job? And how does that impact my ability to take care of my kids? And so it really hit me early on that this is a big deal. This is going to be something really serious and really big. And we really, had to get our heads around just the whole scope of this. So you can imagine with me just kind of the logistics that would go into putting all of this together. It's a whole lot of stuff. And so that Tuesday, March the 17th, before our buses began to roll out in our community with our meals, I looked at our teams and I said, look, guys, these are uncertain times. We don't know really what's ahead of us. We don't know what we're dealing with. If you're not comfortable being here, if you don't feel okay being here, it is okay. I will still love you. I'm just going to love you at home. Because if you're here, we got to be singularly committed to the cause. We all have got to pull together. And so at that moment, we all looked at each other and we all said, we're here, we're staying. Everybody stayed. We all pulled together and buses rolled out on Tuesday, March the 17th with bus routes throughout our community. Families were so genuine and so kind and so sincere in their expressions of gratitude. And, it was a very interesting time. It has been a very interesting time to be out and about in our community. Remember at the beginning of the pandemic, we were not even advised to wear masks. There was so little known. We didn't wear masks for the first about 3 weeks or so we operated. And guidance was changing daily. Things were happening very, very rapidly. And so, we would go out and be out in our community. You'd be out on a bus and, some, depending on the neighborhood, depending on the area, lots and lots of kids and families outside, all of us, we were in, a time when everyone was home and most everything was shut down. And so families were all home. Just such kind expressions of gratitude and kindness. Some of my favorite things were milk cartons. They would take our milk cartons. We had families that would do this and cut flowers from their yard, and use the milk cartons for vases to give us some kind of expression of a way just to show thank you. They would take political signs and repurpose them into thank yous, chalking sidewalks. People were just so grateful. As a mother, I've always said, if you show a kindness to me, I appreciate that. And that means everything to me. But boy, you are kind to one of my kids. And, we're on another level, of gratitude. And so I think that's really what we have felt and what we have lived during this time. When you're good to people, especially when you're good to people's children, it really resonates with them and they just really feel something. And especially when you're putting yourself at risk to do that, it means even more. And so I just really, it was never an option for us, I think, to not do that, to not go to our kids. We went out every day. And we took lunch for that day. We did, lots of different options too for our kids. It wasn't the same thing every day. We tried to make it as close to what it was like at school. And we took breakfast for the next morning. So our kids had breakfast and lunch every day delivered to them. And they had people that were coming to them, to their home, to their neighborhood, to their apartment complex. And they saw us in person. Kids would come out dressed in Halloween costumes. They would come in their Sunday clothes. It became a highlight of their day. And that school bus, coming through the neighborhood, it became this beacon of goodness and hope that families and our community really, really responded to. And so it's just as we continued through the entire time of the pandemic, we ended up serving in excess of 2.7 million meals throughout our community. And so it is It has been an incredible, incredible journey. It is, it's been hot. It's been tiring. You are in a mask. You got diesel fumes. You've got the heat. We are in Georgia, for crying out loud. So it is very warm. It just, none of that really mattered. I mean, what mattered is we had children that we could help, and we were in a position to help. Truly, truly for us, and it continues to be on a daily basis as we move into this new school year, it's a labor of love. It truly is a labor of love for me. It is a labor of love for each of our staff members and for our district to be able to take care of our kids and to serve our community. So thank you so much.
During this crisis, millions of Americans are struggling to afford food for their children. No Kid Hungry is here to help. We're working with organizations nationwide to feed children during and beyond this crisis. If you need help, simply visit nokidhungry.org/help to find free meals for your kids. No questions asked, no registration needed. It's just healthy food for kids who need it. Go to nokidhungry.org/help today.
This show is about benefiting No Kid Hungry, a national nonprofit dedicated to connecting children with food. We have plenty of food in the U.S. and nutrition programs at work. The problem is, not enough children have access to them. So No Kid Hungry gives schools and community groups the funds and guidance needed to launch and grow programs that feed more kids. That includes school breakfasts, summer meals served at schools and community centers, after-school meals, and emergency feeding programs during times of crisis. They do research and they advocate for solutions that work. When you donate to No Kid Hungry, you help break down whatever barriers stand between a hungry child and a healthy meal. Consider donating now at nokidhungry.org/USA today. Now, here's our next previously recorded storyteller, George Baker, a muralist from Atlanta.
So it's second grade. I'm in my art class. Chalkboard, dust is all throughout the air. You can hear the scratching of markers onto white sheets of paper. And of course, there's a little kid in the back eating Elmer's glue, because that's always what happens in these situations. But then, there's me at my little desk with my white sheet of paper, just drawing away. And for me at this time, this is the best place that I could ever be. This is the opportunity that I have to kind of create my own world, to showcase who I am. It's really where I get nothing but great energy out of. And as I'm drawing, I see out the corner of my eye, my second grade art teacher just walking over towards me. And so I'm kind of getting excited, because I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to really just show off what I have here, right? And so she comes up to me and she sees some of the, shapes and figures that I'm drawing. And mind you, I wasn't really drawing realistic things. I was kind of drawing these like cartoon characters that I kind of came up with, from my own mind and heart. And my teacher says, "Oh, well, what are you working on?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just drawing. I kind of want to be an artist once I grow up." And so she kind of gives me this look of like, okay, she says, "That's kind of funny. I don't really think that you can be an artist. Your stuff doesn't really look realistic." And man, I can tell you at that moment, I was just immediately crestfallen. It was like if there was a DJ inside of the classroom, the record would have scratched. It was totally mind blowing. And I could really feel like this spark that I had in me just slowly fading away. And I didn't know what to do. That was my dream at that point. I just wanted to be an artist. I wanted to express myself in that way. But to hear from my teacher that I couldn't, I was lost. But for some odd reason, that there was a sense within me that okay, this can't fully be right. Like I think I need a second opinion. So literally right after the school bell rang, I dart over to the library, and I'm in there, and of course in this library there is a mass amount of books, and then there is every single shelf is littered with nothing but all the different characters that are actually there for each entire shelf. So on the history shelf you got Napoleon, you got George Washington, and then I see the art shelf that has Picasso and Michelangelo. And once again I'm kind of getting this feeling of like, well, I still think she may be right, but let me go try anyway. So I'm going through as many books. I'm pulling everything, a whole bunch of beige spines that are just showcasing me all these incredibly realistic works from Michelangelo, from Picasso, from Chuck Close. And I'm just like, man, I think this lady may be right. And, just as I'm saying that, out of the corner of my eye, I just see this beautifully adorned hot pink spine that is on the shelf. And of course, I'm a kid. That is immediately going to attract me. So I take a beeline right over there. And as soon as I pull it out and I see it's the artwork of the illustrious Keith Haring. And for those that don't know, his artwork is very bright and vibrant and all these bold colors and lines, and nothing in there looks realistic at all. And mind you, he has done work not only in New York, but he's in galleries. He's overseas in Berlin painting these large murals. And I'm like, oh, all right, I got the plan. Immediately take it over to the librarian. I rent it out and I'm jetting home because I cannot wait to go and see my teacher in the morning. So I walk into the classroom the very next day, book in hand, book bag. I'm not even carrying up. I don't even care about the contents inside of there because at this point, that doesn't matter. This book and this teacher are about to meet. So I go over to her desk. All the students are filing away, and I just, boom, slam the book right on her desk, and I look her right in her eyes, tell her, you're wrong. Keith Haring is an international muralist, and none of his works look realistic. So I can be an artist just like him. And I walk away, and man, I can tell you at this moment, man, my chest is just puffed up. Like I feel like I got 2 packs up here and 6 packs down there, and I'm just strolling beautifully over to my desk. And as soon as I sit down, I look at the teacher, and she is just fuming, just like, George, I'm gonna call your parents. And so, just as mighty as I felt, I have never felt as scared as I did that day. Because if anybody knows, one of the worst things that can ever happen while you're in school or really away from your parents is somebody saying, I'm going to call your parents. So I'm just like, oh, okay. And all that puffed up chest, oh man, I'm just sunk right back in. And so, man, I can tell you right now, that was one of the longest bus rides home. I felt every speed bump going home. I get dropped off, and man, it just feels like the distance between my bus stop and the doorstep is just impeccably long. And I'm just dragging my feet, dropping my keys to get inside. And I'm like, you know what? It's okay. I'm just going to commit. So I finally walk in, and I can hear my mom in the kitchen cooking. And so I'm like, all right, well, I could just run upstairs. We'll deal with this later. I know something is coming, and I may not like it, but I decide to actually just go over to my mom and try to tell her what's going on. So I walk in the kitchen, and I see her, and I'm like, Mom, and she immediately interrupts me. And she says, "Hey, I heard about what happened today, and there's no need to explain." And I'm like, "Are you sure?" She's like, "Yes, there's no need to explain at all. That teacher was wrong. And you were definitely right in what you did and how you expressed yourself." She was like, I'm going to tell you right now, there's going to be more experiences that you'll have like that in your life, where everybody around you is telling you that you're wrong in what you believe in and you're wrong in what you're doing. But you know yourself way better than anybody on this earth. And if you believe in it, then I want you to continue to do just that. Find the evidence, not for anybody else, but for yourself, and just live out the dream that you want. So now, some 23, 24 years later, now I am 20 feet high in the sky on ladders and on lifts, painting a mural for No Kid Hungry. And I'm just mind blown at where this life has kind of taken me. And, I look back, and the only thing that I can really think about is, I'm still just that same little George that found that hot pink Keith Haring book. And funny enough, I'm following right in his footsteps of being a muralist. It's not something that I would have predicted, but one thing that I would have predicted is I'm still that same little kid drawing away and creating my own universe. Thank you.
That was a very inspiring story about living your dream and just centering in yourself. That's incredible. But now we will hear from a person on the front line of this work, Pamela Taylor, Chief Communications and Marketing Officer for No Kid Hungry. And here in this Q&A, she's talking steps we can take in this effort with Storytellers Project founder Megan Finnerty.
With that, I want to bring up today's Q&A. We're here with Pamela Taylor. She's our Chief Communications Officer and Marketing Officer for No Kid Hungry. And she wants to help us understand a little bit more about how all of us can help. Hi, thanks for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Aren't these stories it's a lot, right? We so appreciate all of the work that you and your organization does. So let's get into it. In the decade before the pandemic, No Kid Hungry and its partner organizations had really made huge strides in cutting childhood hunger. But now some of those gains have been lost. Can you talk to us about that 1 in 6 number, kind of what the situation looks like this school year?
Yeah, so, in 2018, we saw some of the lowest rates of childhood hunger that we had seen in a decade. The numbers were about 1 in 7 children, almost 1 in 8 children were facing hunger. During the pandemic, right around March of last year, when everything started to shut down, school doors were closing, and schools were trying to do just what Peggy described, we saw that number go as close to 1 in 4. And we've seen some improvements because of a lot of things that have happened. So the number is this year around 1 in 6 children may be living with hunger. It's not where we want it to be, but we're definitely starting to trend back in the right direction.
That's great. That's really what we're here is, right? We said before that there is a solution to these things. I wanted to talk about, you guys really worked hard last year to adjust some of the policies at the federal and state and local levels. Can you talk a little bit more about that flexibility in distributing food and some of the things that you found worked and what you're trying to make durable?
Exactly. So just like everyone else, we had to figure things out quickly. And one of the things that we learned right away is there are parameters and restrictions in place on where kids can consume food. When food is given out for school breakfast or lunch or after school meals, that needs to be done on school property. Well, what happens when schools are closed? What are children supposed to do? So we had to, as an organization, work with our advocacy groups, our own government relations teams, and make sure the federal government was willing to make some adjustments so that schools and parents and teachers could get food to kids that wasn't at school, that weren't at school. So we saw opportunities where parents could come by and pick up meals for their kids without having to have their kids in their car. Initially, when this first started, the kids had to be present. That wasn't the safest and healthiest thing to do. So the federal government recognized that that was probably not the best option, lifted some waivers by the USDA so that parents could come and pick up meals for their kids and take them back home. A lot of what Peggy just described, where they used their school buses and they went into neighborhoods and were able to drop off meals for children. Everybody had to get super creative and figure out what policies do we need to look at differently so that we can meet the need of the people where they are during the time that we're in. A lot of those policy changes, though, have been implemented even beyond where we were this time last year. We've seen things like SNAP benefit increases for families so that there is additional money for meals and to get groceries and other things that their families need to have nutritious meals every day. We're seeing things that we just didn't know. How long were people going to be out of work? How long were we going to be able to provide the meals that everyone needed? So these additional SNAP benefits turned out to be really, really beneficial to families.
Thank you for going into that kind of detail, because I think it's hard for people in the abstract, like government policies and bureaucracies, right? It's kind of hard to picture. So just the specificity around No Kid Hungry and some of its partners saying back to the federal government, hey, if you have 3 kids in a house and they all have different class schedules and they're all different ages, it might be physically impossible for the mom to find, or the dad to find an hour when they're not all in class or they all have a break and they can all pile into the car, get the food, prove they exist.
That's right.
It's a nightmare. Yeah.
That's
and so
right.
I really hear that, things, anyway, it's complicated, but another thing that came up for a lot of us last year, in addition to being, I think, like really aware of bureaucracies, is how not everybody, depending on where you volunteered or where you lived, might have imagined how widespread hunger is. And after seeing so many nights on the light of news coverage of lines at food banks all across the country, do you feel like the pandemic exposed a hunger crisis? Did it create a hunger crisis? Was it already there? Help us understand kind of from your position what that looks like.
It did both, right? Okay. Hunger oftentimes is referred to as a hidden crisis. You can't see hunger on people all the time. And so what the pandemic did is it brought hunger to everybody's television, everybody's, mindset, because you couldn't help, like you said, but ignore the hours-long lines at food banks. What it also did is it made hunger much more visible. In other words, people started to see their neighbors in line and their kids' classmates in line and their, friends and families from church in line. People who didn't experience hunger before, certainly facing it in a way that they had never done before. And I think it was important that we tried to make sure people did not feel any kind of shame or stigma around having this moment that no one planned for. No one planned to lose their jobs. No one planned for schools to be closed. No one planned for everything to shut down. And we've heard many times people say, many of us are, one paycheck away from a disaster. And this is what was revealed. This was what the crisis revealed. In addition to all the things that the crisis was, it revealed another crisis. And so I think people had a different understanding and appreciation for the crisis of hunger. And this was something that it made everyone kind of step back and say, wow, I didn't know that it was so pervasive. I didn't know that it was so close to me. I didn't know it could come into my own kitchen. And that was something that I think everyone kind of really got a very up close and personal view with last year.
I mean, that feels very true. I know even, I'd have Zoom calls with my family, and it was a conversation I had with my siblings. We all live in different cities all throughout the West, and each of us talked about, where were we funneling our donations and how many people it seemed like needed our help, particularly at the beginning of the pandemic. We have time for one more question, and I want to go back to that 1 in 6 number. We know it's down from at the peak of the pandemic, so we have a lot to be confident that your donations can make a difference. But talk to us for a second about, a lot of people are aware that they need to donate. How does our donation today, like, where does that money go? How much money have you already donated? Like, kind of give us a sense of scope.
Sure. So the first thing I want to say is the generosity and just sheer humanity of America showed up last year when people saw, neighbors and television screens full of food bank lines. Donations poured into No Kid Hungry, and we are so eternally grateful for everyone that showed up for us. Our corporate partners showed up for us. Partners that we had never worked with before wanted to know, what can we do to help? And things that people didn't even think about because, like I said, no one had faced this before. How do we do this? What do we need? How do we transport a cafeteria full of food to neighborhoods all over our school district? So the money went towards refrigerators and portable coolers and portable heaters, and some areas where people couldn't get to school to get the food, they needed transportation. And so school districts bought vans and shuttles so that they could load them up with bags of food so that they could go into neighborhoods just like Peggy described. There were so many things. We needed PPE, of course. We needed to make sure everyone that was going out to distribute food or hand out food, they were safe and healthy. We had inclement weather, all over the country. Depending on where you live, it could have been really hot or super cold. And we wanted to provide funding so that they could protect themselves from the elements. This was going on every single day for about 16 to 18 months. And here we are. What we are so grateful for is since March of 2020, the numbers just came out yesterday. No Kid Hungry has been able to donate $98 million in grants to schools and school districts and community-based organizations all across the country, to about 2,300 different schools and school districts. That is because people have been so very generous to us. And just like you said, if you could today or sometime in the near future, go to nokidhungry.org/USA Today, we would be so, so grateful. We've not seen a decline in our donations. People understand the crisis, they understand the need, and they also understand how important it is to make sure we have no kid going hungry.
Oh man, Pam, thank you so, so, so much for your time today, bringing us these messages, walking us through these talking points. And thank you for doing your job every day. We appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Pamela and Megan, for those insights and for that conversation. And now I'm happy to introduce Corey Draper, our next storyteller. All right, we're experiencing some technical difficulties, but we will be hopefully we will be able to resolve that pretty soon. Um, um, so yeah, in the meantime, again, please donate if you can to nokidhungry.com. Please go to their website, nohungry.org/USA Today. Again, it's a wonderful wonderful organization. And it's a wonderful mission as well. So please give what you can. Anything is welcomed. And we'll be sure to get back with Corey once it is resolved. Let's see. Okay, so we're just going to go ahead and go to the next storyteller, previously recorded from Juan Carlos Luna Vargas. He's a teacher from Rialto, California.
You back to 1986. 1986 was the year that changed my life forever. I grew up in the south side of San Bernardino, California. It's a neighborhood that has many challenges, but those challenges have made me the man that I am today. And for that, I will forever be grateful to my community. When my father left us that year, my mother was pregnant with her second child and struggling financially. We were renting a one-bedroom apartment in San Bernardino. And for many years, I would blame my mother for my father leaving us. I felt that she was at fault, and that was not even the case. My father left us for another woman. It was very tragic for me. It was difficult for me. I was only 7 years old. I was just a kid. I didn't know how to handle that. I thought that my parents would always be together, that marriage is forever. I couldn't believe that they had separated. I was like, oh. But I remember the day that my father left. I remember he was going to work, I believe. But I remember I ran to him and I hugged him tightly. And I said, Dad, I love you. Well, that was the last time I saw my father. He never came back. I was 7 again, 7 years old. And every day I would run out to see if my father would be coming in. No. And again, I blame my mother. And I remember telling my mother that I hated her. And I hated her. And hate's a strong word. And now we had become a single parent household. And as a child, you don't know what you're saying. You can't control your emotions. But I will forever ask my mother, Olga Vargas, for forgiveness and blaming her for the breakup with my father. I now understand marriage is not forever. However, marriage can be forever with hard work, commitment, communication, and respect for one another. So I think of that all the time. I'm currently entering my 18th year as a teacher, and teaching is my dream job. My teacher, Ms. Linda Brown, my 5th grade teacher, changed my life. She made me believe in myself. She gave me the encouragement. She gave me hope that I can become anything in this world. And she was my 5th grade teacher. I teach 5th grade because of her. This year, I'm teaching a 4-5 combo here in Rialto Unified School District in the city of Rialto. I would like to tell you that many teachers are working tirelessly to accommodate student academic growth. We have the biggest challenge this year because our students have been out of the classroom for over a year and a half. So we have a lot to catch up. And I always think, as teachers, we always feel overwhelmed. We have meetings, IEPs, we have lesson plans, we got a grade. It's just a never-ending struggle for teachers. And God bless teachers, my colleagues. You guys work hard. You guys work so hard. I see you. I know many parents now see you too. So can you imagine when I was told 2 years ago that we'll be serving breakfast in the classroom, in our own classroom? I was livid. I was mad. I was upset. I was frustrated. I was thinking, another thing? For reals, one more thing? So I'm not even thinking about the nurturing part. I'm not even thinking about the mental health for our students. I'm thinking, adding one more thing? I think I was the biggest advocate for not having breakfast in the classroom. So I'm definitely not proud of that. And let me tell you, I was so wrong, like really wrong. Breakfast in the classroom has been a hit at my school site and in my district. I've seen the benefit of breakfast in the classroom. I'm so grateful for the No Kid Hungry organization for making sure our children are eating. I noticed this particular family of 5. There's 8 in the 5 of 8 children. 5 have come through our school. 4 of the 8 have been my previous students. I noticed that they were going through the same issues that I went through as a child. The parents are clearly going through a separation. And I wonder, how were they feeling? They were always late. They were tardy. They were absent. But when we started breakfast in the classroom, they were coming in. They were not missing. They started changing. Attendance started changing. They weren't coming as late. They were coming in early. They wanted to sit with their friends. So the benefits that we're seeing with breakfast in the classroom, the students want to interact with each other. They want to communicate with each other. I think us as human beings, we just have the urge to communicate. We need to see each other. I know I missed it. I missed being in my class, talking to my colleagues. Good morning, how are you doing? So I would just like to say that breakfast in the classroom at first, we were looking at that like, I was not feeling it. But let me tell you, it's amazing when you see it in action. Currently, we have students who have roles. We've changed it, leadership roles. We have a schedule. Right now, currently in my class, we got the 4th graders going on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The 5th graders going on Tuesday and Thursday. So it's a system, and they love it. They love taking initiative. I have definitely seen the change in behavior. I see this particular family improve in a lot of ways. They're coming to school, like I said, very early now. And at first, I got to tell you, passing out breakfast, I was thinking it's going to be really messy. It's going to be not good. That couldn't be further from the truth. I was so wrong. Students are eating breakfast. They're coming in. They're excited. They're talking to their friends. They're communicating. That's what we need. And I always think about that. Like, we never really realize what we have until it's gone. And when the pandemic hit and I was at home teaching, I definitely miss my class. I miss my culture. I miss my students. And I think now we appreciate more of what we have. I think it's the passion that we have for, in my case, and many colleagues, the passion to teach. I have my dream job. This is what I went to school for, to become a teacher, to inspire and motivate these students, to tell them, yes, you can. You can accomplish anything you want. And to my teachers who were there for me and made me believe, I'm forever grateful. Grateful for giving me the opportunity for me to grow and become a great educator and someone that really cares for our students. In conclusion, I would like to say thank you for this opportunity to share my story with the nation and around the world. I can also relate to the students of mine what they're going through, such as hunger, mental health, single parent household, and poverty, especially in the Hispanic community. Back in the 80s, it wasn't really a positive thing to look at a woman raising 2 boys, 2 gentlemen. My brother Jesse and I, we have become successful because my brother has pushed us to be successful. And I'm excited. My brother's a high school counselor in San Diego, and I teach, and we're educators. And my mom would always push that. And I see that with our parents right now. They're pushing their children. Hey, go to school, work hard, get your dream job. And I always think, mothers, you guys are amazing because you guys are always looking forward and always pushing your children to be better. And I think, like, I see the similarities between my mom and some of my students' parents. They just wanted to be able to provide for their families. They would like to give the children the opportunity for a better life. I mean, who doesn't want that for the children? I think we all want that for our kids, to have a better life, to not live in poverty, to live, to travel, to do anything you want. I remember window shopping. Window shopping is you'll see it, but you wouldn't buy it. And I think that to me was very motivational. I think, like, for our parents, to those parents out there who sacrifice so much, you sacrifice your mental health for your children. Thank you. Our parents who will starve before their children starve. I think to myself, remember my mother, God bless her heart, she wouldn't eat to make sure that we ate. And I think many parents out there, you guys, I know exactly what you go through. To those moms who are single moms, and you guys are fighting the good cause, continue fighting the good cause, because at the end of the day, your children will be successful. That's a promise. And I would like to thank No Kid Hungry for investing in our community in the city of Rialto, for taking a risk in our community, for letting our community benefit, for not going hungry. I've seen the program work firsthand. I've seen it with my students. I've seen it with my parents. And I just want to say thank you. And I also would like to challenge my colleagues out there to give breakfast in the classroom an opportunity. don't be like me, be a negative person and be like another thing. No, it's probably one of the best things that happened in my class. And I just want to say thank you for listening to my story. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan, for sharing that powerful story on how something as simple as breakfast can create community and help lives. So now we're going to try Corey again.
Can you hear me? Hey, are we good?
We can hear you. Hello.
Fantastic.
Awesome. All right. Well, without further ado, please take it away.
Thank you. This is what I get for trying to be fancy. No matter how good your equipment is, technology just fails sometimes. That's all right. So in 2006, I had the opportunity that poor college students don't typically get the chance to do. I got to travel across the globe and visit Hong Kong, China with a free place to stay. Now, unfortunately, being a poor college student almost forced me to be stranded there. So my sister, Ashley, who's 2 years older than me, she got this amazing opportunity at the time. She's an actor and she's a performer and got a job with Disney. They hired her to be Alice in Wonderland in their brand new Hong Kong Disneyland. Really, really cool thing. Since she's American, they paid her handsomely for it, but they also flew her out there for free and let her stay there for free transportation and everything. And she was on a short-term contract. She was there for 9 months in total. But she was also very young, and it was just a great opportunity for her. And so my brother has this amazing idea. He's like, hey, we should go visit her. We should take advantage of the fact that she's living for free in Hong Kong. Let's go and stay with her for a couple of weeks and stay in Hong Kong for free too. And she was in a 2-bedroom flat, on Disney property. So it was a pretty good hookup. And his big pitch was, hey, when would we ever get an opportunity to do something like this? Go to Hong Kong and stay for free. So I couldn't really argue with that other than the fact that hey, we don't have very much money to begin with. But you know what? What we did have going for us is not only were we poor, but we were irresponsible. So we saved up as much as we could, and we put our plane tickets on a credit card. And within 2 months, we decided, hey, let's go. We're gonna head off to Hong Kong and visit my sister. So the trip was awesome. It was great. We visited Disneyland a couple of times, which the Disneyland over there reminded me of a smaller Magic Kingdom if you've ever been there. We went sightseeing all over Hong Kong. We got to sing karaoke, hang out with my sister's Disney princess friends. And I even had my first sip of alcohol. I was a goody, and I was 20 years old, had not sipped alcohol yet, but the legal age there was 18. So I figured it's okay. And Ashley's flat, my sister, where she was staying, it had plenty of room for us. It was like a nice hotel, really, because it had a huge swimming pool and access to American television, and even had a cleaning staff who would come in and clean up after us. So it was really nice living for a bunch of people in their 20s. Definitely worth emptying my bank account for, and maybe even going a little bit into debt for. But the real story begins the day that we were supposed to come home. 15 minutes before we leave for the airport, we're packing up, we're getting things ready, and my brother asked me, hey, do you have your passport? And I'm like, yeah, of course I have my passport. I haven't really touched it. It's in my backpack. It's in the same pockets it's always been. I have it. But then that just kind of put a kernel of doubt in my mind. I'm like, I haven't seen it, so maybe I'll just go ahead and check. So I checked that pocket in my backpack, and sure enough, no passport. We start freaking out. We tear up the apartment. We're trying to look for this thing. I have no idea where it could have been. I did not think I touched it at all. And we just cannot figure out what to do. The airport shuttle comes and goes. My sister has to call into work because she wants to help us, and she ends up hailing a taxi for us. And remember, we're out of money, so now my sister's paying for everything. She pays for the taxi, and my brother is very upset. Tony is livid, and he kind of had an anger problem to begin with at this young age. He's kind of aged out of it, but he was very, very angry with me. And I had nothing to say. I was just very guilty and ashamed. And we just had to do what we had to do. So we decide, hey, let's take this taxi, go to the airport and see if they'll let me in anyway. And so we go, we arrive shortly before takeoff. My brother is panicked because he thinks he's going to miss the flight. We tell him to just go ahead without me. And we get to the front desk and we ask the lady up there, hey, is there any way, I don't have my passport, is there any way I can go to my home country? And she's like, sorry, no passport, no flight. So I feel super bad. Like I said, Tony went away fuming at me. And we asked the lady, hey, what are we supposed to do? And she said, well, you have to go to the U.S. consulate and get a temporary passport. So we had to cancel the flight and then take an hour bus ride to the U.S. consulate in downtown Hong Kong. And I still have all my luggage with me, so it's a huge burden. We end up getting off the bus too early and have to walk like a mile with all my luggage. We get to the U.S. consulate, and we have to go through security, go upstairs, and they give us a bunch of paperwork, and they say, you need to take a photo. There's a photo booth across the street, and just get one of those photos and bring it back to us. So my sister hands me money. She's like, I'll fill out your paperwork, go across the street to the photo booth. So I'm like, okay, I go downstairs and I walk outside and it had started raining. So I don't have an umbrella with me. So I walk in the rain to the crosswalk. And I don't know if you've ever been to Hong Kong or China, but most people there carry umbrellas around with them everywhere. So here I am just getting drenched. It's a downpour at this time. And I'm just this sad American at this crosswalk with a bunch of people and their umbrellas. And I'm just feeling miserable and drenched. And even at one point, as I'm crossing, somebody put their umbrella over me, having pity on me, and kindly let me across the street, which was very kind. I got to the photo booth, put in the money that my sister gave me, and it ate some of the money. So I had to then go back through the rain, go back upstairs, like through the security upstairs, the U.S. consulate, get more money from my sister, go back downstairs, go back through the rain across the street to the photo booth, put the money in, took my picture where I'm sopping wet, get the photo, go back through the rain, go back through security. And at this point, security has pity on me and they just hand me paper towels and I'm matting myself down because I'm so drenched. I go upstairs and I give my sister the photo to hand in with the paperwork. And she's like, you are soaked. And this is a point where people don't believe me. They feel like I'm making this up, but I swear to you, I respond to her. I'm like, yeah, it's raining. And I motion to the window and it had stopped raining right when I did that. I promise you. So that's just kind of how miserable everything was. So we get the temporary passport, and then I have to stay with my sister one more night. She pays for me to reschedule my flight the next day, and thankfully all is well at that point. But the other side of that story too is what happens with Tony, my brother. So he just left us. He's fuming. He's upset with me. He's angry. He's said some choice words to me at this point, and he's so upset. He makes his flight finally, and he goes the 13 hours or whatever to the connecting flight in LA, and on his connecting flight from LA to Atlanta, which is home for us, he notices in first class that there's kind of a commotion. People are whispering, like apparently there's some celebrity in first class, and my brother is the seat right behind first class, and he asked the flight attendant, like, hey, who's up there? And the flight attendant's like, it's some band. I think it's called like Incubator. It was the band Incubus. If you don't know, it's a very, I think, popular band in the early 2000s, especially with young white males such as myself. I was a big fan of Incubus at that time, and that was a flight I was supposed to be on. And not only that, since my brother was so close to first class, when he got off of that flight, he got to deboard with Incubus. He got to ride the tram, pet their dog, chum it up with them at baggage claim, all while I'm getting poured on in Hong Kong and miserable about having to stay one more day with no money. It does kind of turn around though. So let's rewind it to the point where my brother is on the flight. He just left us at the gate. He's fuming. He's mad. He's upset. He just catches this flight. And as the plane is taking off, he's just had it with his anger with me. So the only thing he knows to do is, hey, we're kids of a Southern Baptist music minister. The only thing he knows to do to calm himself down is I just got to read my Bible. I got to read scripture to calm myself down. I faced this long trip from Hong Kong to LA, and I've got to calm down. So he pulls out his Bible, he opens it. First thing he sees is my passport right there in his Bible. So he has to go that whole flight knowing that he had my passport the whole time. So he got a little bit of his comeuppance. And I think the moral of the story is that it turns out my mom was right to us all along when she told us, when you're feeling lost, the answer can always be found in the Bible. Thank you.
That is quite the words of wisdom to live by, Mr. Draper. So you almost had a little terminal, like the movie The Terminal.
That's right. I'm gonna live there. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. It was a treat to hear.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That does it for our show, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to also take this time. It's our last, the South Region's last show of the year. And I want to thank all of you from joining us tonight and the previous shows, and opening your minds and your hearts to these stories. And I also just want to thank Angela and Sarah. They're two amazing women that are behind the scenes people. They are the backbone of what we do here in the South Region's Storyteller Project. So I just want to give them a little shout out. They're amazing people. But again, lastly, if you would like to donate, please visit nokidhungry.org/USA Today. It's just a wonderful, wonderful organization and mission. And I really hope that you guys feel so compelled to give. So again, you guys have a great night and just have a great rest of the year. Enjoy this fall weather. For real. Peace. Oh, hello again. My name's LeBron. Welcome to